What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor South Africa, season 6, the Philippines, the last 3 episodes, which includes the finale episode of this podcast. There goes my cat walking in front of the camera screen. We love that for us. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and honestly, this finale was just like Rachel and I were talking before we started filming, and this finale makes us very confused as to why this is widely regarded as one of the best episodes, or not best episodes, best seasons of Survivor, because it's like this is the worst thing that possibly could have happened.
Yeah, I think from episode 1, Alyssa said Tom was her winner pick, so she turned out to be correct. So that's good. But like Tom and Jean were just, I don't know, such a roller coaster throughout the season. Tom had like a good edit, then he had a bad edit. Jean was just sort of like drawing blank. I thought, she sort of rose her stocks up at the end. Like when she starts talking at Tribal, I was like, okay, yeah, Jean, go, good for you. Like, go girl kind of stuff. But I don't know. I think like maybe 2 weeks ago in one of the recaps, Alyssa and I sort of joked that the worst case scenario of like if a pagonging did happen this season after the merge, that Jean and Tom would be final two, and our worst nightmares came true.
Yeah, and I guess it's like when two goats make it to the end, it's kind of disappointing because then it's like there's no good option for a winner. And I feel like this is almost like what would have happened in like literally any season where a final three was two goats and an obvious winner. And then it's like the obvious winner is removed from the equation. And I'm just, oh, I would be so frustrated if I was one of the members of the jury on that season, just because it's like you're picking the shiniest of two turds. And
Yeah, the lesser of two evils, because both people seemed sort of annoying.
yeah, so I don't get how people can like this season so much when it has such a disappointing ending. Cuz like when we did winner picks at the beginning of the season, I said Tom was my winner pick. And I can't even be happy that Tom was my winner pick and he won because I like don't think he deserved to win and I don't think Jean deserved to win. So it's like
Yeah, I guess I'm also sort of confused because we started watching this season of South Africa because everyone is like, yeah, season 6, season 7 are both really good. So, season 6, Alyssa and I are both sort of like, on. But season 7, I guess we'll have to see if Survivor South Africa can redeem itself because it's not even like the journey to get to this destination in the finale episodes was a good journey. Like, okay, maybe there were some cool boots, but like 3 people basically self-evicted / quit / asked everyone to vote them off of their tribe. And then you had a pagonging the entire post-merge, and all of the people that we liked got voted out early. And I was like, dang, this sucks.
not to mention the person who was rocked out in like the second episode. Like
could have been Tom.
yeah. So yeah, it just like it seemed like people might have liked it just because it's a lot of like kind of weird and insane twists, but not a lot of like I would say legitimate strategy and like actually interesting gameplay.
Yeah, I think, I had a fun time with like crazy things happening, a lot of like weird things, like a rock draw happening at the second tribal council ever when only one person has been voted out of the game. There were some interesting characters on the season. And so that was cool to watch some of the votes, but I don't know. Once like all of Palace's crew started getting voted out, I was just so sad.
Yeah, it wasn't even fun to watch because it's like there's some times when it's like something crazy happens and it's fun, but in Survivor South Africa when something crazy happened, I was just like, oh, this shit again. So
Yeah, so going into episode 14, it's the second to last episode of the season. It's the loved ones visit, so good to see that staple of Survivor carry over. Like that last week, we saw the auction happening. This loved ones visit was interesting because there were no questions. So it literally was like a 5-minute segment versus US Survivor. It's like a 20-minute segment of, oh, this is your partner. Partner, say your name. What's your favorite memory together? And it drags on and on. But this was good. It was quick, speedy. Everyone just ran out there and I was like, what's your relationship to one another? Sometimes I didn't even know who was coming out.
Yeah, I think that it was good just because I feel like I didn't like the people as much. So I didn't really care about their relationships. So it's like if you don't like someone, you don't really care if their like a wife likes them because it's like of course their wife likes them. There were so many jokes about like Tom's wife being the woman who put up with him. I was just like, "Oh my god, can we not?" I heard the joke like 4 times in 5 minutes.
They got no other jokes to say, I guess. But I don't know. I always think it's cool to look at people's partners or their parents and like see what they look like in relation to one another. So that's the fun part. I like that they didn't ask any questions because I feel like that part always drags on in US Survivor when you're talking to the partner or to the parent or to the contestant about something random and I'm like, fast forward.
Yeah, I just sitting through this episode just and sitting through the loved ones episodes in US Survivor also not fun. So like
Yes.
I enjoy the loved ones episodes as a concept, but unless you really care about the people, I feel like it's hard.
Yeah, like the Winners at War loved ones visit was really good, obviously, since everyone is really like into all of the cast, but sort of in normal Survivor seasons when you don't maybe care about 5 of the people there out of like the 8, then it's like, okay, chop chop, let's move on, let's see a challenge, let's see who's going home.
Yeah, and I think also I like the Winners at War because then you weren't sad if someone like didn't get to see their like loved one because it's even if you don't like the people and you don't like their loved ones, it's still sad to see people disappointed that they don't get to see their loved one. So
Yeah, I always feel so sad when that happens too. I'm like, oh dang. I wish everyone could just get picked after like the challenge happens and then everyone can go back to camp. So that was the cool thing about the Winners at War because you didn't have any losers and no one felt sad that like their loved one had to go back on the boat and leave. So Werner wins and he gets to pick 2 people and he brings Tom and Katika. So like LOL at that final 3 that PK was trying to blow up last week. And it better be freaking obvious for everyone because literally Werner is picking these people to go on the loved ones visit. Come on. I was hoping, maybe Annalise will make a move. Jean was left out of it. Maybe Jean will waken up and make a move because PK tried, but that failed last week.
yeah, I don't know. The ending is so disappointing that I don't even want to think about how it could have been better because literally anything would have been better than this. So,
yeah, I don't know. I think like it was interesting. I really thought that I guess everyone wanted to vote Werner out. Werner has the idol this episode. And so, like, it's final 5. Werner is obviously going to use the idol. So, you're not voting him out this time. So, people's last chance would have been last time or at final 4, which is what we see happen. But Tom wins that immunity challenge. So, Tom is making it to final 4, which ruins Jean's plan of voting Tom out at final 5 because it seemed like Jean thought Tom would be okay with just making it to final 5, and she has reiterated that over and over again. Like, that's wild if you think someone would be grateful and like lay down once they hit final 5.
Yeah, I just think it's also like even if someone might be grateful just to make it to final 5, you do have to consider the possibility that Tom will win immunity. Like, I don't know why that never came up as even like a hypothetical. So, I don't know. But Jean reiterating that Tom would be grateful just to make it to 5, just in hindsight, that was probably foreshadowing. So
yeah, no, that's like after watching the rest of the season, it's probably they're sticking that in there. So everyone watching is like, oh my God, why would John say that? Tom, I hope Tom goes at final 5, like go Jean. But then it ends up that they're in freaking final 2 together. And so it probably does foreshadow.
yeah, so I was right about Tom's thing at the very beginning about being a winner being foreshadowing, but I feel like what disappointed me the most about this is I feel like there is a way you could have cobbled together some sort of character arc for Tom or Jean that wasn't just them being steaming piles of shit.
That's what I think like the bad thing was. Like literally Tom sort of he was likable the first episode, then he just went so downhill. People were like smack talking him in their confessionals. Shanae was smack talking him. He kept on fighting with PK and Vusi and Paulesa. Like, why are you fighting with people all the time? If you wanted a likable winner, you could have edited that out or maybe framed it a way that makes him likable. But honestly, I think it's better that you show his true colors so people can't be like, oh my God, he's so great, he's so friendly, when maybe his true colors are not that and he fights with people all the time.
Yeah, no such thing as a winner edit in Survivor Australia, I guess.
Or so, South Africa.
Oof. You can tell that, like, I just don't care about this season anymore because I don't even care which Survivor franchise it is. But, yeah.
Which, yeah, you know, I guess that's a good thing. There is no, like, likable winner edit, so they're not lying to us on the television. And so with this episode 14 tribal council, it could have been something cool. We see people starting to flip on their alliance, and I just was sort of annoyed because Werner and Tom were so like gung-ho, I'm a man of like morals and dignity and like liberty and some other like weird words you would stick in there. I'm trustworthy. But like I heard Katinka wanted to vote me out, so that gives me the right to vote her out now because she betrayed the alliance first. But don't worry, y'all, because I'm still a man of my word and dignity. Like, just because I'm backstabbing Katinka, it's because she started it. Like, I don't know. I just find that so annoying. Like, I just hate the I'm a man of my word kind of game when, like, obviously you're backstabbing people too. Like, think of another strategy.
Yeah, I feel like we see this a lot in Survivor when people are like, oh, I'm a person of my principles. I will never like lie to my alliance mates or whatever. And it's like in Survivor, you're inevitably going to have to lie to someone in order to get to the end. Like the people who make like their whole honor, their whole game, I cannot think of a single person who has done that and then won the game. So
yeah, you know, I think it's sort of like the coach game where like I'm a person of my word, but in the game I think it's sort of annoying, you know?
Yeah. So I feel like it just gets also very annoying because it can come across very like condescending and holier than thou.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't like that. So yeah.
I agree. I think another cool thing that was happening at this tribal council was that Werner and others maybe wanted to vote out Jean to unbitter the jury. And I thought that was an interesting strategy because they felt that Jean would make the jury like them more, because in all of these tribal councils, which I thought was so funny, the jury had the best faces. They were all like scowling when the pagonging kept happening. They were like, holy S, like this sucks, like vote Werner out, vote the big dogs out, all of that. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting because I don't think that Jean would have unbittered the jury. It seemed like Jean was so set that she was making final tribal council, final 3, because she was like sleeping all the time. People would even notice like, oh yeah, Jean stopped working because she thinks she's going to get to the finale night. So I think she would have been pissed if she was voted out at 5.
Yeah, I think she would have been too, but it's like I feel like voting out who they did was the right choice for everyone involved because it's like you do want to get out the big threats, but then they kind of ignored the fact that by getting rid of all the big threats, you're left with like the dinky people, which is how we always talk about the game. Like, it's really interesting, but if you're playing the game right, the two people at Final Tribal are the two least interesting people. So it's a good thing that not everyone plays the game right. Otherwise, like, everything would be horribly boring. But
Yeah, so we see Katinka get voted out at this tribal council. The jury was laughing at Tom, which I was like, A1 snaps for that. They were, I don't know. Jean gets an idol played for her because Werner, no. That is this time, right?
I honestly don't remember. They all kind of just blur together.
Yes, Werner plays his idol for Jean because it is Final Five. That's the last time he can play it. So yes, that does make sense because everyone was like, yeah, Werner is gonna vote or like play it for himself, but he plays it for Jean. So that's like a big move. Except I was sort of pissed off because I was like, oh my god, Jean was going to flip, and now she's maybe gonna feel indebted to Werner. She's not gonna flip, and it's just going to be like more boring going forward because now Werner, good for him, he's got Jean back in his pocket because he played an idol on her, which I guess I'm glad we didn't see happen, but I thought it could have happened.
Yeah, it could have. It would have been a thing, I guess. I don't know. I think that for Werner, having someone like Jean as a number was a good thing, but obviously it didn't work out perfectly for him because he ended up going home and she ended up coming in second place. So
Yeah, I think Jean, at least I'm glad in episode 15, so the penultimate episode of the season, that she has confessionals and we see her talking to other people. Like, why would we go to the end with Werner? We see, like, Jean trying to convince Tom to vote Werner out at this Final Four, which I think that was like, oh, the pivotal thing about this Final Four episode because they might have voted Werner out, and Werner was obviously the person who is the most stock to win the game right now. So that would have been like a really great move. And so it was good that the people were thinking of it. But then looking at the three people left in Annalise, Jean, and Tom, I was like, I don't want to see Werner go. I'd rather see him just steamroll his way to the end because he's literally controlled the game the entire way through so far.
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, where people play the game right, the interesting people go home at like 4 or 5 or whatever, which is why US survivors started doing the fire making challenge, because then it's like you can't just send the interesting people home. They have a chance to at least stay in the game. But yeah.
Which, yeah, I guess, you can argue that if Werner was so good at the game, he would have done something differently at this Final Four because he tried to play his cards. We saw him talking to like Annalise and Jean and Tom and trying to get them to flip on each other so that it's at least a tie 2-2, or it's like he gets one and then Annalise just goes home. But the worst thing that could happen, it would be a 2-2 and he has to go to fire against Annalise. But Tom did flip, and maybe you could say that's a fault of Werner for not being super great at the game, that he didn't see that Tom was going to flip on him. But, Tom being a man of his word, why would you think that Tom would flip on you, especially that Tom was like preaching loyalty and everything throughout the game so far? So I don't know. I still am not a fan of the Final Four fire making challenge. I do like having this Final Four like no idols, no advantages, nothing. So you really see gameplay and you have to work on like the social game, who wins that immunity challenge. So that like is an aspect of the game, because when you go from 5 to Final Tribal Council, 5-3 in US Survivor, where if you have an idol Final 5, you can make fire Final 4, then you make it to the finale in Final Tribal Council without really having to maneuver that much. I just think there's a lot more you can do when Final 4 is open, no advantages, nothing. And that's when you can really separate who deserves to go to the end and who just is a few days short.
Yeah, I think part of the problem with like the Final Four is that if it does end up in like a 2-2 split, the person who's like the second in command of like the really challenging person, so in this case Tom, is almost always going to flip on Werner because it makes sense for his game to do it no matter how good Werner's social game is. And I feel like we kind of saw that in Millennials versus Gen X and US Survivor when Ken flipped on David, because it's like, even if they were the tightest of tight people, because like it would be impossible for Ken to win with David still there, and it would be impossible for Tom to win with Werner still there. Like at that point in the game, people are going to start thinking selfishly no matter how good your social game is. And I feel like the only person who like kind of maybe has an argument against this is in Game Changers, when Sarah kept Brad and Troyzan in line, but it's like they were both already on her side, so it wasn't a 2-2 split. It was a 3-1 thing, and she just had to make sure they didn't flip. And so, like, I feel like that's kind of different, but I don't know. I feel like Final Four is so tricky to navigate because you either have to have totally brainwashed people or be, like, non-threatening enough that your jury speech is then going to be a lot harder. Because if you're the overwhelming choice to be a winner, you're going to get voted out at 4 no matter how good your social game is. So
I agree. I think like if you are that front runner, Final Four is going to be super hard for you, and we see it time and time again. That's why US Survivor did implement the Final Four fire making to try to help the winner pick or the front runner make it to final tribal council so the fans aren't all pissed off. Because, you know, if you are smart and if you are thinking at Final Four and you see like, oh, the jury is super receptive of David or the jury is super receptive of Werner, we need to vote him out. Final Four is the only time that we can vote him out because there's no advantages. He's not going to pull out his idol kind of thing. It makes a lot of sense if your players are intelligent and they are thinking and they can see the game pieces on the game board. So yeah, you know, Final Four is going to be hard for that kind of player. But I think that's like the super interesting thing of the game is if you are the front runner going in, or like maybe you start to pick up speed after the merge or something, how can you cover that like I'm so good at this game and try to facade that when you are at Final Four? Because you can argue that like the best game players can navigate that Final Four and try to like downplay their superiority over everyone else, that they can get out of that Final Four tribal council alive and make it, and maybe brainwash or trick people to vote like the loser other person out. But I think that's what makes the game so interesting, is when you only have your social skills, the relationships that you built, like how do you navigate that versus, oh, advantage get in, 6 people have an advantages, like 4 people have hidden immunity idols and like 2 people have the necklace on. Like I don't know, I just don't think that's as good as Survivor. Versus if everyone is on the same playing field, how can you trick people into getting your way just by using words?
yeah, so I don't know, I just feel like this season is kind of like the worst of both worlds as far as like too many advantages, but then also like bad social games and just all around it wasn't fun.
Did you think it was a lot of advantages? I would say
I think it was a lot of like
than
poorly used advantages, I guess is the thing. So because it's like Paulisa got voted out with an idol. There was some other advantage that wasn't used properly. I don't know. Like it felt like there was a lot of twists and turns that were just dumb, which I guess is kind of what I associate with too many advantages, where like some vote ads just feel dumb. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I guess we could say that there's less idols than US Survivor, because you would have like Banner's 2 idols, Palesa had like 2 idols, 3 idols even, maybe. She had a lot of stuff, or advantages, and then PK had an idol, and then Annalise's vote steal. So I guess, you know, you could say that's like 5 or 6 things at play. But I guess, I don't know, it didn't feel like a lot to me necessarily, but I do think that some of the stuff wasn't played correctly. And we also had like 3 idols played at one time at a tribal council that made things disappear. And I liked how they weren't just like put 3 idols back in play the next day, but only 1 idol went back in play the next day.
Yeah, I like that they definitely seem to be trying to limit things more, but it still felt like off balance, and I don't know why that is. Like, it might have just been the way the social game was, where things felt strange. So, yeah.
So, tribal council at this final four happens. Vanner gets voted out, and that was the probably biggest vote of the season, I would argue. Maybe minus Palace's vote out with an idol. That was a cool vote out, but it just felt sort of anticlimactic. I don't know. I thought, like, okay, Vanner, he's been the front runner since the beginning. Everyone should want to vote him out. He finally gets voted out, but it didn't, I don't know, it just didn't feel like, oh my God, Vader got voted out. It was just like, nice.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the big things where all of these vote outs kind of felt very similar in the sense where, like, you never felt like, oh, this is definitely a turning point of the game. And I feel like part of that is because of, like, the pagonging style nature of a lot of the vote outs. And then by the time Werner got voted out, it was kind of just like, okay, let's get to the finale already. So,
Yeah, that was a bummer. I really wish that it was more climactic. I don't know, maybe it's editing or music or something that made it less climactic. The jury didn't even have super wowed faces. I thought they would be like, oh my God, like pooping their pants, like this is what we wanted. But it seemed maybe they wanted Werner to make it further because they didn't want the final two that we saw happen.
yeah, I feel like Werner, if you're a jury member at that point, is the easy winner vote. And so it's like, if you're a jury member and Vernon gets voted out, it's like, oh crap. Now I have to listen to like Tom and Annalise or Tom and John or Jean and Annalise argue. Like, it's no longer an easy decision for you. So you're probably not happy.
Yeah, so going into finale night, it is a final three. So we don't start with like 5 or 6 people like US survivors. So that was cool. They also in South Africa do a live show, which I thought was super cool to see as well. Everyone on the finale night at the live show looks so good. I was like, oh my God, okay, let's see some more of just like all of their rocking looks because everyone was dressed to impress. It was so good. Nico looked good. Everyone was just so well put together.
Yeah, I always love seeing the glow ups that everyone does because it's like, I feel like you don't realize how much weight everyone has lost and how unhealthy they look until you see them like look normal again. And then you're like, oh my God, they were like unhealthy skinny or whatever. So, yeah.
So I think with the winner potentials in this final three, we have Tom, Jean, and Annalise. I think I would argue that Annalise maybe had the most winner stock going into this final three, and then Tom would be second, and then Jean would be first. Although I could see like Tom and Jean both being not respected because they both seem to get like sour faces whenever they talk at tribal councils versus Annalise was like winking at the jury members. She seems to be cool with people, so I would definitely put Annalise as like the front runner going into the finale night.
Yeah, I feel like Annalise also has the added bonus of not like outright pissing anyone off. Because I feel like Tom and John have both gotten into arguments with people. And like maybe Annalise has as well, but I feel like I don't remember her being as like standoffish as either of them. And so if you're just doing it based on likability, I feel like Annalise is miles ahead of both of them.
100% agree, which sucks because we see Sean win the final immunity challenge. So she's won the last 2 immunities, which is some good stuff. Like, good for you, Sean. People probably wouldn't think that you're winning stuff, but you won the 2 most crucial immunity challenges. So that was really cool to see. And Sean gets to vote someone out of the jury.
Yeah, I did not like this twist when they did it on US Survivor, and I did not like it when they did it on Survivor South Africa. I think it's a dumb twist. And I guess like I'm glad that Werner was the one voted off because at least like part of the reason it made me so sad that Neil was voted off the jury and Co Wrong was because he was literally the first jury member. And so he had been waiting for like 20 days to like be able to like be on the jury and make this vote. And then at least Werner had only been on the jury for like a day. And so it wasn't like he was waiting forever for his like time in the spotlight again. But I don't like this twist, and I wish they would not do it.
And plus, Neil was mad at Pax, so he wasn't even voted out of this freaking season. It just sucks all around, you know? It just feels bad. I guess I get where Jean's mindset was in, okay, Werner might be pissed off that we voted him out last time. He's the newest member of the jury. He might be mad and he might poison the jury. Like Werner was afraid Jean would unpoison the jury, unbitter the jury. Jean thinks Werner is poisoning the jury. So that was sort of funny how it correlates there, that juxtaposition. But then after Jean votes Werner out, Werner was like, yo, you made the wrong decision. I wouldn't have poisoned the jury. I was someone that has worked with you for 37 days. I know your game. I could have helped you at Final Tribal Council and helped you plead your case because I was the person working closest with you. And I was like, dang, feels bad. Werner may have been on your side and he just doesn't even get to vote. Like, if I were on a jury, that would just be so sad. If that's the whole point of Survivor, once you're voted out, is to vote for the winner, and then you don't even get that. And Werner says he was going to help you.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where if you don't know for sure how someone is voting, then you shouldn't have like voted them out. And I feel like I don't know why Jean was so convinced that Werner would be with Tom, just because like Tom was the person who was responsible for getting Werner out. Like if Tom had voted with Werner, things would have looked differently. So yeah.
True. And I think, you know, Werner seems like a very reasonable dude. Like, yes, he's probably pissed off that you voted him out at Final Four. Like, anyone would probably be pissed off. But he seems like very level-headed and like reasonable that he would know it's a game. And then if you can plead your case and if you take responsibility and you can articulate well, like, yeah, Werner, I voted you out because you're going to win this game, you know, like suck up to him a little bit. I think he would be able to vote in a way that isn't bitter. And especially Jean knows that she gets to pick who she's going with to Final Tribal Council and she gets to vote someone out on the jury. I think like you were saying, Alyssa, if it's Jean versus Tom, you know, maybe Werner is more mad at Tom because Tom was preaching that loyal game. He was Werner's right-hand man. And then Tom did go and backstab him because Werner was really relying on Tom to make it a 2-2 split to go to fire making or to vote Annalise out at Final Four.
Yeah. I guess you could make the same argument that like Werner would not be bitter towards Tom. And so it would like Werner was someone who would have equally voted for Tom or Jean, depending on like who had the better argument to him. And like maybe that's more threatening than someone who is definitely going to vote for Tom, because it's like it's better to walk out of there knowing how you did than to walk out being unsure of whether or not you won, I guess. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so we see Jean trying to pick and decide who she wants to bring to Final 2 on the beach. And I liked, it was a cool segment because we got to hear only from Jean's perspective. We sort of got to saw everyone making their pick to Jean, but we really got to see Jean counting through the numbers. She was like, okay, Vusi's going to vote this way. Police is going to vote this way. These people are maybe question marks. I'm not sure who they're going to vote for. And so I thought that was really cool because I don't think we've seen that a lot on like other Survivor Final Tribal Councils when someone gets to pick who they're going to the end with. So I thought that was something really cool to see.
Yeah, it's always cool to see like people's thought processes, I think. Mm-hmm. So
I agree. So sad things happen. Jean votes out Annalise. And it was very funny because at this tribal council, she's talking about, you know, if you make the wrong decision here, you're going to lose all of the money. And so after knowing what happens, I'm like, yeah, I guess it was the wrong decision. But I think for Jean, either way, she's in the losing spot. So it really doesn't matter. I think it is interesting, though, when you see like the third place finisher be able to go to Final Tribal, but I think she's in a losing spot either way.
Yeah. I feel like Jean kind of like screwed herself over from the beginning because she never really made an effort to be nice to anyone, I feel like.
After Stacey Lee quit.
Yeah, and so yeah, I don't think Jean ever really had a hope of winning the game. And like if she was going to win, it would be against Tom. And so the fact she couldn't even win against Tom, like that's a yikes.
Which, yeah, you know, at the tribal council, at Final Tribal, and maybe some tribal councils leading up to the end, I thought Jean spoke really well. She was making a really articulate case. I was like, okay, yo, she is actually she's able to express herself. I think she has some really good words to say. So going into Final Tribal Council with the questions, I was like, okay, maybe Tom and Jean are more on an even playing field and it won't be a blowout because both of them sort of suck a lot and both of them seem mean and annoying. So it depends on who's able to talk better. And then I would think maybe Sean has an upper hand because she can talk better than Tom. So Final Tribal Council, it's question style, which is great. It's none of that Socratic seminar BS that we see in US Survivor where everyone just talks over each other. But we see everyone get to ask multiple questions, which I liked.
Yeah, I like the multiple question thing just because that kind of lets people explore more things. And I feel like it also kept people from getting as preachy. Because, like, if you know you only have one question and you have to make it count, I feel like people end up preaching rather than, like, asking. So I liked that.
This was honestly the best part of the episode, the season maybe, was everyone shouting on Tom and John at the Final Tribal Council. PK starts the night off saying, I don't respect either of you. And I was like, LOL, this is what we are all thinking. Everyone is straight up roasting them. Boosie says that both of you coattailed to the end. And like, oh my God, it was just so beautiful. Both of them getting roasted at Final Tribal.
Yeah, I feel like that's the only thing that made this Final Tribal worth listening to. Just because I feel like if people had tried to pretend that like Tom and John were their ideal Final Tribal Council candidates, that would have been yeah.
That would have been way more hard to watch. Like, everyone, oh my God, you're the best. Like, I love you so much. You're so great of a Survivor player for making it to the end. So it was just stick them in their place.
Yeah, stick them in their place and let them know that like just because they win does not mean that they're good players or good people.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
I feel like a lot of times people confuse being the winner with like being like a god tier Survivor player, and it's like I feel like with this season especially, the whole like the person who won is the person who played the best game thing. No.
That's why I liked Jean's Final Tribal Council speech because she emphasized luck. She was saying how, you know, I'm not better than any of you because this game is about luck. You know, I just found myself lucky. I had to maneuver, I had to win some, but mostly it's luck. And maybe it seemed like she emphasized luck too much because people didn't want to vote for her because she was just lucky. But I'm like, I don't know. I just liked how she sort of owned her answers and she wasn't like, yeah, I'm better than all of you, but it is a game of luck and I like the cards fell in my favor. You know, if Stacey Lee didn't quit in that vote, maybe Sean would have been going home. So I liked Sean's answers, but like Tom, all of his answers, it was just, I don't know, so annoying. I felt like Tom wasn't really owning up to any of the question answers. He was just saying he's a man of his word. I was like, oh my God. Like, he was so taken aback when PK said that he didn't respect any of them. And I'm like, okay, I was on Team Sean at that point because I really liked Sean's answers.
Yeah, I feel like John gave a lot of really good answers in Final Tribal, and so I'm not entirely sure why she lost if people hated her and Tom equally. So I guess the only thing that I can take away from this is that people hated John a lot more than they hated Tom to start with. And so even though she had like better answers to a lot of the questions, I feel like she still lost. So I don't know. I feel like it must have been closer than we were led to believe, unless people just like really, really hated John. So, because I feel like just looking at the numbers where Tom got, I think, 8 votes and John got 1.
6-1.
I can't count. But it's like, looking just at those numbers, you would think that Tom was like a much, much better candidate than John, but it's like, no.
Yeah.
used to 2 turds.
So I would be very interested in knowing why people voted Tom, because I do think Sean's answers were way better at tribal. So it could be like what you're saying, that both of these people weren't respected. They both aren't good players / wouldn't be a good winner, and maybe people went in thinking that Tom was the lesser of two evils, so they don't respect Tom, but they do like his gameplay more than Jean, who they also don't respect, but maybe they dislike her luck floater kind of gameplay more than Tom's, floater mean person gameplay. I'm like, they both are just sort of sucky.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like if I was on that jury, I wouldn't know who to pick either. So maybe it's just like they drew a hat vote.
Yeah, so we see Vusi says, Tom, you lost my vote. Your social game stunk. You talked down to people. I'm not voting for you. So Vusi was the only person to vote Jean. At least Vusi kept his promise, so that's really good. So Tom wins 6-1. And that's how we end the season.
Yeah, so overall, we've said this, but don't get why this is people's favorite season. We're probably going to do a watch of Survivor South Africa Season 7 and see if that is any better. And if it's not, we don't trust any of you anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you all so much for watching. Definitely let us know in the comments down below what you thought of Survivor South Africa Season 6. It's always so cool to watch other versions of Survivor. So this has been a lot of fun, even if Alyssa and I have been maybe a little bit down about the season. But all in all, I think it was a fun watch. It's something cool that we can do during this quarantine time and when there's no Survivor happening in the fall, because it's September and Survivor would have been coming back in a few weeks with season 41. So even if we might not have enjoyed this season as much, it was still a cool thing to do.
Yeah, it was still fun, and it was a good way to pass the time, like Rachel said. So, like we said, we're going to be doing Survivor South Africa Season 7. Also, let us know down in the comments below if there's other foreign Survivor seasons you would want us to see. Rachel's already seen all of Survivor Australia. Or if you want us to, revisit a past season of, U.S. Survivor that we weren't podcasting for, we'd be down with doing that as well. So, yeah, we'll see you guys soon with another